All right, gang, Wicca and Witchcraft for Dummies, Chapter 5. This chapter is a little long, so it may take a couple parts. Chapter 5, we're going to dig into the past. We're going to talk about the witch hunts and what took place. We're going to talk about looking for the craft in history, guessing the truth about the birth of Wicca and how it started, and celebrating the revival of it. So depending on your outlook, Wicca is either the oldest religion, the newest religion, or it's both. And the reason is because in Wicca and witchcraft, not a lot of the traditions were put on paper. There was not a lot of documentation. If there was, for example, like my Book of Shadows is very personal to me. And when I die, this book goes to my high priestess and she makes sure that it gets burned. Because we do not keep our spells of our personal intent for someone else to use. So this must belong to my teacher. And my teacher has given me possession of hers as well in the event of her death. And so it's because of this that not a lot of information from the old days has been documented. So a lot of people tend to fight about what Wicca or witchcraft really was. So let's go back to the theory of what is the goddess? How did all of this come to be? This has always been. In order to survive, ancient humans had to live attuned with the cycles of nature. They had to know when to follow the migration of the animals, where the fresh water flowed, where the fish spawned, and where the fresh berries grew. On a daily basis, the ancients felt their interconnection with the world around them and its interdependence. Make sure you follow me. Ancient people interacted with the natural world because their minds weren't yet structured like modern humans. They may have been able to perceive the energy flowing among beings. They realized their connection with the plants and animals, not only the physical forms, but also the non-physical energy. Some people may have been able to shift their consciousness and step out of the physical world into the world of the unconscious mind, often through meditation. They could reach the collective unconsciousness, the inherited, deep part of the mind common to all living beings. Here they were linked to all life and they were free to interact and communicate with the non-physical forms of animals and other beings. When you look back at different types of mythology, whether it be indigenous tribes, whether it be the Greco-Roman, whether it be, any religions, it's full of references to animals being relatives, brothers, or sisters. Ancient art also shows this kinship. A large cave lies in the Ardèche region of southern France. The cave is called the Chauvet. It's divided into underground chambers filled with more than 300 paintings of lions and other animals, often shown leaping and running. The paintings have been shown to be at least 30,000 years old, according to radiocarbon dating. And one painting deep in the inner part of the cave shows a figure that is half human and half bison, perhaps representing this union of human and animal nature or spirit. Numerous cultures have creation myths describing an event in which humans lost the ability to step away from the ordinary consciousness and interact with other beings. In many of these myths, the power to do so is then granted only to a few individuals, the shaman of the tribes. Now, there are speculations, of course, as to what happened. Why did we stop thinking this way? Some say that the third eye to communicate with deity was closed by the baptism of the church. Some people claim that shamans were chosen, but other people believe, like me, that shamans had autism. And the reason I say that is because children or people with autism tend to be very in tune with what's going on around them. They can identify patterns, often mathematical equations. Sometimes they can see the way the leaves are moving on the trees and they can interpret what's going to happen. They can see by the way the wind is blowing or by the way the clouds are moving. They can understand, is the rain coming? Do they feel a change in temperature? How are the plants growing this year compared to last year? Because they remember. What did the plants look like on this day last year? They remember. And the people with autism had extraordinary abilities to use this information to compute how to make things better for the people around them. And so they became the shamans. And they would lead their groups to follow migrating animals, to set up a camp, to, create the environment they need to create, because they would ask the shaman, when should we plant our seeds? When do we harvest our crops? They asked these people these questions because they are the ones who had the answers. So basically, shamans is what started Wicca and witchcraft, or it became the beginning of Wicca and witchcraft. So to find witches and Wiccans in history is a bit of a challenge. Did it exist? People in many fields of study have been debating this issue for decades. No definitive answers have surfaced. Wiccans and others usually believe and promote one of three explanations about Wicca. So Wicca is a new form of spirituality that recreates some older practices and ideas. Wicca is a return to or revival of an old, even ancient form of religion, because not a great deal is known about the old craft. Like I said, contemporary Wiccans must add to the old tradition. Wicca is a continuation of a very old religion that has been passed down through families and covens in an unbroken line since ancient times. What you believe about Wicca and witchcraft really comes down to how you define the terms and who you believe. Okay, so there's also people out there that will argue whether or not Wicca and witchcraft are actually real. So to understand that, it depends on how you define those terms. So what do we know so far? Fact, historical and archaeological evidence clearly shows that many groups throughout history did worship the goddess or goddesses. For example, hundreds of carvings of the fertility icon Sheila na gig, which is the photo that I showed you, such as that one, date back to the Middle Ages or later. These startling similar representations are on display on buildings, even Christian churches throughout Great Britain, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, and maybe artistic representations of the goddess. Fact, many groups throughout history saw deity in nature. They believed that deity was all present in the world, that people come from and are a part of the divine, and that deity is in everyone. Some people did practice herbalism, healing, divination, and magic, or midwifery. And throughout history, we know many people attended agricultural and fertility rites, festivals, and celebrations that were timed to the cycles of nature. So basically, the definition of Wicca and witchcraft is a set of beliefs and practices that people followed but didn't label. It's a natural way of life as opposed to a religion. So people often ask me how I got involved with it, and it's because when I heard about Wicca stood for, I felt like I was coming home. It was the things that I had believed my whole life. I just didn't know there was a name for it. I had never heard of Wicca before. But as I learned more and learned more and learned more, I decided, I was like, oh my God, these are the things I've believed my whole life. I just didn't know there was a place for me. So it felt like coming home. I can't explain to you the feeling of losing the fear of death and letting go of the feeling of control. I am here on this planet to learn a life lesson. I don't know what that lesson is. Maybe I learned it in the suffering I took place in when I was younger. Maybe I learned about, what it's like to have a spouse who goes through cancer. Maybe it's about losing a mother in the hospital. Maybe it's about, helping my sisters and their husbands and their children grow up and become beautiful human beings. Maybe it's about being an activist. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's telling a personal story that I had that affected somebody else's life. I don't know what my life's mission is, and I never will, and that's okay. As long as I make it my life's mission to leave this place better than I found it and becoming a better human being than when I left, no matter what, my spirit or my progression is moving forward, and I'm giving positive energy to the collective consciousness. That's what I live for. And to know that one day when I die, I'm going to rejoin that consciousness and I'll be back another day to fight another battle. And all of the people that are in your life that you connect with energy, they will follow you into different lifetimes. They will be part of your life at some point. It may not be the same relationship as in mother-daughter, but it could be brother-sister. It could be niece-nephew. It could be victim and perpetrator. You don't know. Your relatives will be with you in the next lifetimes. And so I no longer fear death. Do you know what that's like? Considering both of my mother's sisters died before the age of 60 of breast cancer. To no longer fear death and to give myself an understanding of the next stage for my life or my spirit gives me so much relief. There's no heaven or hell. There's no magical place that I'm going to go to. There's no, fiery place that I'm going to go to either. I'm going to rejoin the consciousness and someday come right back down. Sometimes I get to see the karma happen to other people and sometimes I don't. But was there actually an organized religion called Wicca or Witchcraft? That's a more difficult question to answer, and we're going to get to that in the second part of this chapter.